Hello, this is the Fancy R2 camera made by the company GIISKOM. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. This video will simply be about image stabilization, showing you sample videos recorded with the image stabilization turned on, because this camera does include image stabilization. Not the cheapest camera, not the most expensive, but at this price range, since it's around $99 with a coupon, so typically those cameras that are more than $50 will include better image stabilization. So very excited to test that out. Typically, if you buy a camera that's maybe less than $50 or around $50, it's possible that the image stabilization might not be great. At least from my experience, not all the same. But for a camera that's more than $50, sometimes you find that the more expensive, cheap action cameras will have better image stabilization. But really, the only way to know for yourself is either to make videos and test them, or to look at other people's videos. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going outside with the image stabilization turned on, and I will show you the results. Let me just show you how to turn on image stabilization. If you're interested in purchasing this camera, just browsing around, this is the Fancy R2 camera made by the company GIISKOM with a touch screen that we have here. So we're going to scroll down, go to Preferences, and right here it's our first setting. We have image stabilization. Click here, and then we can turn it on, we can turn it off, on or off, and then if we turn it on, and we go back, if we go back, then we see that we have this little EIS indicator that we have image stabilization. Of course, we can always adjust the resolution by clicking on that number over here. So image stabilization is turned on. Again, if you want to turn it off, sorry, we're going to scroll down, Preferences, click on image stabilization, click off, just to show you that we will no longer have the indicator here that says EIS. So when you have EIS here, it's going to mean that you have image stabilization. So hopefully that'll keep the footage from looking too shaky, but we're going to make some videos, and then you can decide for yourself if you think the footage looks good. I'll be walking around and trying to just also determine for myself if I think this camera has good image stabilization. Ideally, now, if I'm shaking the camera a little bit, the videos should still look shaky, because without image stabilization, the footage can look very shaky, especially if you're walking around. So hopefully that's going to be corrected with the EIS turned on. Just want to show you how to turn on image stabilization, and that this camera does include image stabilization. And all we have left to do is go outside and make some video tests with this camera with the image stabilization. Sample videos will follow shortly with image stabilization turned on. Thanks for watching this video. Have a nice day. And the next part of this video will contain sample footage with EIS, image stabilization. Hello, this is a 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the image stabilization turned on. This is the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera. Just going to take a very quick walk to show you the image stabilization feature enabled. Just taking a walk, trying to hold the camera still, and hopefully the image stabilization feature will reduce the rest of the shake. This camera has image stabilization. You can either turn it on or off. Currently have it on. So you take a quick walk and see if we can keep the camera, how steady the camera will be. Image stabilization turned on. Image stabilization on. This is a 1080p. 60 frames per second video test. Image stabilization on. This is a 1080p, 60 frames per second video test with the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera. Image stabilization test, 1080p, 60 frames per second. Image stabilization test, 1080p, resolution 60 frames per second with the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera. Image stabilization video test with the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera at 1080p, resolution 60 frames per second. Hello, this is a 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with image stabilization with the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera that you see right here. Extended video test with the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera, this time with image stabilization. This video is going to be uploaded to YouTube with no editing. Image stabilization on. Let's start walking, and hopefully the video will look smooth. So let's see what happens. Trying to keep the camera still. Of course, when you're walking with no image stabilization, it's going to be very noticeable that there will be some shake. No matter how hard you try to keep the camera still, it's just not going to be completely still. Again, this is what we're recording with. It's GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera at 1080p, 60 frames per second. Video test with image stabilization. So let's take a walk. So this isn't the highest resolution setting on this camera. Actually, the camera records all the way up to 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. This is taking it down a notch a little bit. My personal favorite video setting, 1080p, 60 frames per second. And on the cheaper action cameras, $50 or less, typically the image stabilization can be a feature sometimes, but it's not very good, at least in my opinion, because if you keep the camera very still and you're just staying still, you're not walking, yes, it can be good, but if you're going to be walking around, and especially if you're not holding the camera with a handle, like I don't have a handle attached to the camera, then you will really need to benefit from good image stabilization, which can be found on cameras starting at $60, $70, $80 or more. So rather than those $30 to $50 cameras which supposedly have image stabilization, this is really a situation where you will get what you pay for. So higher end cameras, not the most expensive, but higher end with $60, $70, $80, those cheap cameras will have image stabilization that can be better than on the cheaper cameras. That's just the way it is. Same with 4K resolution. You might see some cheap action cameras which advertise 4K, which might not be good, might not be very smooth, but once you see a camera that records all the way up to 4K at 60 frames per second, then you know it's maybe a higher end camera. Those that are in the $70 to $100 range, then you can start to say, okay, maybe this will be a good product with good stabilization and good 4K resolution. So here we're just walking around again. There's nothing more than a video test with image stabilization. 1080p, 60 frames per second, uploaded from this video recorded with this camera. It's GIISKOM Fancy R2. We're gonna take a walk. We're gonna go down the stairs. Over there again, we're just trying to keep the camera still. And if you feel that there is some shake and it's difficult to watch the video, that probably means the image stabilization is not very good. However, if you feel that it's possible to watch the video and there's not too much shakiness going on, then maybe that's a good thing. So I'm just gonna walk down the stairs. probably a good exercise really here is to just walk up and down stairs and see what happens there. That's usually a good test. See if we can keep the camera still. Let's try that again, okay? Just gonna walk up the stairs. Again, it really is a big difference, stabilization versus no stabilization. And especially if you're going to be walking around with your camera, it might be worth investing in a camera that's a little bit more expensive. Not the most expensive, but probably not the $50 and less cameras. You'll want something that's at least $60, $70, $80 maybe. But don't take my word for it. And especially even if you buy one for like $100, don't take anyone's word for it. Just watch videos, watch sample footage, watch some video tests, and then decide for yourself. Don't just say, oh well, the camera says it has this feature. No, you should see the feature in action. You should go on YouTube, go on Amazon. People post videos there all the time, especially if you really don't want to be disappointed. The best way to do research is just to look at other people's videos to the extent that those videos are available. Like if you want to know what the 4K resolution looks like, look at someone's video that has a sample of 4K footage. If you want to know what image stabilization looks like, look at someone's sample footage with image stabilization. Simple as that. Don't just go by the price. Oh, it's a cheap camera with all these features, it must be good. Well, not necessarily. The box on the camera, it can say, oh, it produces stunning video and stunning photos, but that's really just advertising. So watch this video, watch other videos, watch videos on YouTube, Amazon, and then make it easier to make a determination if that's the product for you. That's all, based on the price, based on the features, whatever you're looking for. This is the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera. This is an extended video test with image stabilization. 4K resolution video test with image stabilization with the GIISKOM Fancy R2 action camera. 4K video test with image stabilization. Video test with image stabilization on. .4K video test with image stabilization on.